So my watch says my clock says 1900. Everybody okay if we start?
Sure.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, June 10th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Coastside County Water District. Let's go ahead with our roll call, please.
Director Coverdale is absent this evening. Director Michelson,
Present.
Director Mueller,
Present.
Vice President Feldman,
Here.
President Reynolds.
I'm here. Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Any public comments? Move on. The consent calendar was approved by Director Coverdale and found to be in order. Do we have, and I'm saying that because Ken isn't here tonight.
Yeah.
Do we have any items on the consent calendar that anyone either wants to comment or have pulled from the consent calendar? All right. Being none, let's do a roll call to approve the consent. Yeah, let's do that thing, the motion and the and then I will. I was blazing right along. All right, guys, it's up to you. It's a brave moment.
So we'll move to accept the consent.
Brilliant.
Second.
John, you want a second?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Roll call, Coverdale is absent. Director Michelson,
Yes.
Director Mueller,
Present. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Vice President Feldman.
Yes.
And I'll
And
say
President
yes as
Reynolds.
well. Yes. All right, thank you. Directors, do we have any comments or meetings attended?
I think we have to make a brief report on our May 14th, one day vice chair was the two of us went down together to Aqua Conference in Monterey. And it was well attended. There was really a big crowd, and I think everyone is on the same direction with staffing and making sure we take care of the employees, and then different programs there, and then our my little Aqua Region 5 board that I've made a couple comments, and but I think it was a good day for one day, and we didn't have to stay too late with the law firm's evening, so we were able to get home that night. Mr. Vice Chair, he was there with us.
Yeah, John, I mean, it was well represented, I thought, pretty well attended, and I thought they did a good professional job, and noted that they had some new types of stuff on the agenda, actually. Some of the discussion topics centered around things like wildfire and things of that nature now, and trying to get their arms around some of the newer issues that many people are facing. I know Mary was there as well and probably had some thoughts on what she saw. But generally, business as usual, in my opinion.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. There, you're up. No, sorry, Jeff.
Okay, on maybe 2561.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Reynolds. We're here to hold a public hearing pursuant to California State Assembly Bill 2561. Report on the state of district vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. Lisa, if we can bring up our presentation for 2561. Thank you for your help. Page. Thanks. thanks for your, appreciate your help as always. AB 2561 was signed into law in September 2024 and became effective in January of this year. And its focus is on ensuring that public agencies are adequately staffed and that their vacancies are not such a problem, that workload issues and turnover result from vacancies, as well as service levels, that we maintain our service levels. And that's ostensibly the focus. We're required to report on an annual basis prior to the adoption of our operating budgets on vacancies, retention, and excuse me, and recruitment. So we're fulfilling our requirement this evening, and we'll do it again every year from here.
Another requirement
Right.
from our local state.
I think we're putting requirement.
Imagine that, who would have thought?
You wouldn't have.
I mean, how much time is this taking?
It took hours.
Yeah, so. Kind of ironic, I mean, those hours would be better spent running the district as opposed to reporting to the government how we're running the district.
Yeah, but in a way, on reflection, looking at the data and the information, I'm not so unhappy that we didn't have the opportunity to present our talk and our position. I mean, it is work and it's absolutely demanding, but the results are quite impressive in my view. And I'm happy to have it out there in the public domain.
You know,
And it wouldn't have been otherwise.
Could I make put a thought on the table? If we have to do this annually, maybe next year we put in a comparison of how we're doing to other districts, because that to me would be kind of interesting to see how we're doing. And if we're gonna have to do that, that seems like a matrix that might be helpful for our team.
That would be a side issue, I mean, sideline, because the requirement is
not a requirement.
the requirement is not, is what's delivered. That would be sort of a comparison, that would be a side bar that you could discuss based on data you get separate from the actual physical document, because that's not required in this document.
And I think Director.
No, it's a good idea though.
Yeah, Director Feldman, as we go through this presentation, your point will be evident. You know, this is a very positive report from our perspective. Among other things, we're asked to, besides vacancies and recruitment and retention, we're asked to talk about opportunities that we see to enhance our policies and procedures that might currently be hindering our hiring practices, and that we have not found anything. We have a pretty successful path, and we'll talk a little bit about that we follow. And as well, we have the Teamsters Local 856, General Manager Rogan and Lisa reached out to our representative. We have not heard back. And we have heard indirectly through Sean Donovan that they had a brief conversation about what's happening with our organization, and they're very pleased. You know, because a lot of what we're talking about with respect to vacancy rates is associated with promotions. And we created openings in the last month for a very good reason. So we may not see Peter Pin attending this evening. If we go to the next slide, please. There are two tables on this page that a great idea from Mary. Our vacancy rates reflect a pretty stable workforce. As of May 1st, before we created our promotion-related openings, we had a vacancy rate of 9%, 8% in the represented team and 10% in our administrative team. And you can see from the table at top that which positions were open. We had the superintendent position and the maintenance worker. As of June, after the organization changes, we have 4 vacancies, 3 of them in the represented team. And one of them we want to talk about further in a moment, the maintenance worker. We also have a senior operator in the distribution side of the house open, and an operator position in the treatment side. And then in our admin team, non-represented part of our organization, we have an opening, again, as a result of the promotion of Emma Barr, now Emma Rodriguez, into a new role. So we're going to back up. Next slide, please.
Oops, too far, sorry.
These are our vacancies of late, and you can see a number of them have been filled almost immediately as a result of the promotions. So we filled the supervisor roles on both sides of the operations team. We filled the senior treatment operator position late May, and we're going to fill shortly the senior distribution operator position. The treatment operator is an opening as a result of promoting one of our treatment operators into the senior treatment role. And then the maintenance worker role we want to talk about in a moment. So we have 3 openings in the representative team, 2 as a result of promotions that we hope to fill soon. And 1 is the maintenance worker. Now we have 2 temporary maintenance workers in place now. We hired them recently. They have an opportunity to become permanent employees. So the thought is that they can fill perhaps the maintenance worker role that we have in our permanent staff that's open at present, and then perhaps one of the operator roles as well. So really a good story still. You know, we have openings, but for very good reasons, and opportunities to fill the maintenance worker role right away. And then similarly, we're going to start recruiting for the customer service rep 2 position, hopefully this week. I know we have a busy agenda, so I'm going to race through this. Recruitment efforts, as you know, we strive to fill our positions with local folks, and we've been very successful in doing so. And we do that for a variety of reasons. But one of the things I'd like to emphasize that Mary and I have been talking about is one of our key methods of recruiting is through staff referrals and word of mouth, and which says a lot about the organization, right? If you're working at a place that you appreciate and enjoy, and really truly believe represents an opportunity, you're going to refer a friend or an acquaintance to our district. And that seems to be our best path for finding people. And again, we haven't found any challenges in our hiring process that we need to address. Next slide. Retention efforts, another really good story. This district, I've seen it in my brief time here, focuses its energies on fostering employee satisfaction. We've had very modest turnover. We're through our process that we just re-implemented last year, the annual performance reviews. We have a development plan where we truly elicit from our employees the kinds of things they see as beneficial for their careers. We try to shape our plans around that, and plus it's really a benefit for us to have employees who are trained in developing their skill sets. So again, it's a positive story with respect to retention, and we illustrate that in the next slide. Thank you, Lisa. This slide is really something, in my opinion. We track how many people have been with the district and for how long. 61% of our people have been here for 5 years or more. It's a really great story, and we have folks who over 20%, almost 30% of our people have been here more than 15 years. And so again, it speaks to how people see their roles here with the district. They see these roles as career opportunities, and many of them have lived that out. So again, the retention story is a real solid one. And that's it for our presentation.
Thank you.
I don't think there are any next steps.
Yeah, I think we should just formally, because the statute requires you to hold a public hearing, so I think we should open a public hearing, see if there's any comments from anybody online or, and no public in the room.
Explain, are we in a public meeting?
It requires a public hearing. That's what the statute does. So we put on staff put on the agenda, presentation by staff, open public hearing, because that's what the statute requires. And so we should do that.
Okay. All right. We'll have something to
You
read.
can just do that and you can just say, I'm opening the public hearing.
I'd like to open the public hearing.
Great.
Any comments?
Invite comments. Doesn't look like there are any comments from anybody in the room. It doesn't, I don't see any hands raised online, and so you can close the public hearing.
All right. We'll close the public hearing.
And it looks like we met the spirit of AB 2561.
You have not just met the spirit, you've met the statutory requirements, and the other thing on your agenda, if there are board comments.
Is there a hand on Pacific Coast TV?
No, that's, I think Lisa's hand.
Oh, that's your. No, you're
I
not.
hear Stan.
You can assign comments to people. Oh, no.
Again, if there are no other board comments, then you've satisfied the statutory requirement and you could move on to item 6B.
All right, let's move on to 6P.
If I may, Mr. Chair, brief comment, I think if you look at communities throughout the Bay Area, there are always some big issues about the budget and employees, but at least we came forward with all of this with public information now. So I'd like to thank staff and the board for the good work, and hopefully the employees are content with it too. So I think we showed that we care about our employees and staff.
Thank you.
I have a question on our next one. And I'm just curious, and maybe I don't know if you know, or Mary, you know, how often do we renegotiate our contract?
We had, I think we had an amendment maybe in 2021 that we approved.
But there's no cycle for it, it doesn't
no.
expire, it's just.
It does, we have a date of 2035 for an expiration, which it can be extended, or it can be, if we get, there's a process to determine if we reopen the negotiations or we just roll it over for another 5 years. In terms of the agreement.
I look forward to that.
But I think the important thing is that we are permanent customers.
Yeah,
We have a perpetual right to the SFPUC water.
Yeah.
So, and this, the water supply agreement is really to, provide the infrastructure of
And the details.
and the details
Yeah.
of the relationship.
with that excellent introduction, could you carry us forward on our consideration of resolution 2025-03?
So I have a little presentation, and these are largely slides that were put together from FOSTA, which a little, we don't have as many as they provided, so.
They get a little happy with the PowerPoint.
What we're gonna talk about today, I'm gonna give a brief overview of the water supply agreement, and then we're gonna review the two contract actions that we have, which the first one is there are 3 items on that will make up the WSA amendments, and then we have an updated tier 2 drought response implementation plan. So if we go on to the next one. Just to again provide background, this our water supply agreement is between San Francisco and all the wholesale customers, and we originally became a customer of San Francisco after 1947 when we were formed, and became a permanent customer in 1984, and then there have been the agreement in 1984, and then in 2009 we had a new agreement. So basically, it's there, and this slide showing 3 prongs. I call it my rules, my dollars, and drought. So the water supply agreement governs our water supply and provides the rules on how we work with San Francisco. And the dollars, basically, this agreement defines the allocation of costs between San Francisco and the wholesale customers for water purchased from the regional water system. So, our costs, basically we're charged, our rates from SFPUC are based on the costs of incurred. It also, we're going to talk about the minimum purchase requirements. That's part of, the looking at the costs. And then they have the third prong is the water supply agreement provides the methodology for allocating the regional water supply between San Francisco retail customers and wholesale customers during a drought. And we call that the tier 1 plan. And there's a clause that says that the wholesale customers themselves may adopt a method for allocating the water during amongst themselves. So that's the tier 2 plan that we're talking about. So the next slide. The first item I'm going to talk about is minimum purchase requirements. Now, we, this clause in the WSA really relates to for customers, for the wholesale customers. Actually, we talk about minimum purchases. These requirements date back to the 1960s. Largely, the issue with is that these are customers who are allowed to purchase water, imported water from other sources. The issue was really we're with the minimum purchases requirements were put in place to limit the gaming that could occur if, let's say, for example, as another source of water was more expensive than SFPUC sources, these agencies might choose not to buy from SFPUC, which would mean all the other members of BOSCA would need to pay for the water and make up the difference. So, to give example, like Alameda County, I'll bring that up. They get 40% of their water from the State Water Project and 20% from SFPUC. So, there are opportunities here, and so, not that, but that was the intent. So what's happened is that conditions have changed. When the 2009 agreement was done, the minimum purchase quantities were lowered for these agencies. But since that time, the just overall demand on the regional water system is lower, and these and several of the agencies actually, end up paying money into, to SFPUC for unused water. So Mountain View is a big one who they actually, I think they paid this year $2 or $3 million or something to, for water they didn't use. Sunnyvale is an issue as well. So with that, we're still, we're subject to severe droughts. So it says still subject, that will always be subject to droughts. And what's become apparent with, recent droughts is that the wholesale customers with minimum purchase requirements are not incented to enforce conservation. Because if they start conserving a lot of water below their minimum purchase quantities, they're just going to have to pay it back with in the end. So this has been a subject that was brought up during our Tier 2 negotiations, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's like, why do we want to save? And so this is, one of the reasons we want to look at this. The other issue is that we want, we said San Francisco and all the wholesale customers want to improve reliability of the, of the regional water system. And this requires really investments on local sources by the wholesale customers. And if we have this minimum purchase quantity, these agencies aren't really incented to go out and look for alternative sources, recycled water, various, and to invest in the system to help with the whole system. So, so you can go on to the next slide. So what this amendment that does is it has 3 prongs. Basically, it resets the minimum purchase quantity that exists today to a formula that looks back at the last 4 non-drought years and applies an 80% factor. It also provides for a 1-year drought rebound calculation. So if we come out of a drought, you're not going to get the you're not going to get the immediate rebound to pre-drought levels. So this gives a 1 year reprieve of, if there's still a minimum purchase quantity, but there is still, it's lower that 1 year. And the third prong is something new. It's a family, we call it a family plan. And basically if the minimum purchase quantity agencies collectively achieve the total minimum purchase quantities, then no agency pays a penalty. So that's the third piece. So next slide. So this slide shows the impact of these changes. Oh, excuse me.
I think I'm getting lost on the tracking. There are 4 agencies with these many, that's the MPQ agencies. The other 22 do not. So this whole thing is really based around those 4 agencies and setting parameters or changing them for them. And making sure nobody gets penalized as a result of it. That's the way they order, is that correct?
That's
None of
correct.
the others have,
None of the other.
because I lost that in so much paper in this.
I know.
I couldn't figure it out.
No,
I
it-
really lost track. And so
But
now I understand. I thought they were only illustrations, those agencies. Those are them.
Those are them.
Okay, now I'm getting
But following up on his question, it says here if the minimum purchase quantity agencies collectively,
yeah,
They're
but all of them.
but only those 4.
Only those 4.
Okay,
So if the whole group meets the demand, San Francisco, that doesn't count.
Well, this is, we don't have, the rest of the agencies
They don't have-
don't have a minimum
They have
purchase
none.
quantity.
Just roll
Got it.
up to those 4.
Okay. All right.
okay, no, that's good. Now I understand
Yeah,
because I
and-
couldn't figure out which way it was up.
And when it says total, it means the total of the 4,
Total
not,
of the 4.
not everybody.
Right,
So that we don't have to pick up their slack.
Got it. Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Got it. But it made it a little easier for them.
Yeah.
Correct, too.
Right.
Yeah, okay, but that's, yeah, I got it.
This is excellent, and you made some interesting comments about the consumption going down. I'm kind of feeling and sensing when you go down the peninsula or through the city or wherever, the growth is slowing down. I mean, they're finding out that all this of the last few years of the building on El Camino, that's pretty well closing down in San Mateo and Belmont and San Carlos, Redwood City. So maybe the water consumption, the water will be reducing. thank
Well, it's all
goodness.
going high density now. You see, it's all high density, no yards, just, there's no outside use.
And really, when we talk about lower water usage, it's really on a per capita basis. So, given all the efficiencies that have occurred in conservation in the last 10, 20 years, we're seeing
Longer than that.
longer than that. Yes, you see a downward trend on the per capita usage.
Just a little follow-up, if I may, through the legal counsel. I've been approached about our new development at Stone Pine. Who pays the water bills in that complex? Will that come out of grants or will the individuals be responsible for
The county will.
City of Half Moon Bay right now is signed up for those accounts.
it? Who
The
is?
city of Half Moon Bay.
Oh, they are
Yes.
responsible.
And I don't, so the parcels have been split, the county is going to end up with ownership of that new mobile home park. At that point, I assume, but we don't know, we're asking them this question actually today. Will the county take over those water accounts?
Thank you very much. So at least it gives us a response when people are asking more and more, especially when you're at the post office, because that's next door to the post office. Thank you. Sorry to change the subject a little bit there, but it's about consumption.
So, or do you have anything else or?
No, I understand. That's why I was just getting clarification. This one.
So this slide shows the impact of this amendment. And so what it's gonna cost of the other agencies, the other 22 of the 26 is between 0.7 cents and 4 cents per unit. And ours, with the modeling will come out to costing us about $10,000 a year.
Mhm.
But with that, it does remove, the barriers, for these agencies to develop drought resistant local supplies and investment in water use efficiency. So I think in all, as we were meeting, with the other agencies over the last 2.5 years, this is an important piece for Phil that will help, make sure that we have all of our fellow agencies really, looking at conservation efforts and looking at, we hope to develop local supplies. These 4 agencies are well positioned. They're large water agencies. They manage their own wastewater and they have access to groundwater.
Does this agreement make them more attentive to conservation?
Yes.
Okay,
it
that's
should.
essentially, they have to pay more attention to it as a result of this.
Well, they always should pay attention
No,
to
no,
it, but it
now
is,
they have
yeah,
to.
yeah.
Just
But
was that the intent?
it helps to make sure
Great.
that they're participating in all of our
Great, that's good.
conservation efforts. But also investing largely, looking at investing in other local supplies, because, with having other local supplies, it's good for all of the
Mhm,
agencies. Go to the next slide. So that's the minimum purchase quantity part of the WASA amendments. I'm next going to talk about the tier 1 plan. This slide I think is helpful because it shows the first the first column shows the available regional water supply. So what happens as we look at a drought, San Francisco will decide how much they have to cut back. So they have so much water, and it's they're going to have shortages up to 20%. They have to shrink how much water is available for the whole regional water system. So the WSA has what's called the Tier 1 plan. And this is a method of allocating water between the San Francisco retail customers and the wholesale customers. So there are set percentages in the WSA and given level of drought. So that's the piece that's in the agreement. Just as side note, and we're going to talk about when we talk about tier 2. Tier 2 is the method of how the water from the regional water system is split up among the wholesale customers. So you have that one piece of the pie that's the wholesale customer share. We have a tier 2 plan to allocate that piece of the pie. This is not, San Francisco is not part of this agreement for the details of the tier 2, except to say that they will, if we have this tier 2 plan in place, they will use it in drought situations to potentially manage excess use charges. Go on to the next one. So what this amendment involves is it changes how we look at excess use charges. So if San Francisco would say we have to go into mandatory rationing, under the current arrangement, they will take all the tier 2 allocations and create water budgets. And then they will look at what we actually used versus this, what's in tier 2 as our water budget. Some agencies may use more than what's in the tier, what's been allocated, and some agencies may use less. So in this situation in this graph, you have agency A and agency C using less water than their allocation, and B and D more. So that's what exists today. This new amendment says no excess use charges will be applied if the collective wholesale customer purchases are less than the tier one allocation. So it's similar to, they try to make it to a cell phone family plan. This is another area where we have the family plan that we will not get the excess use charges. So should in with this amendment. I don't know, do you have any questions on that?
I noted in your write-up that you and Kathleen had 62 meetings.
That's
On this over the last 3 years. So I'm just asking.
Easily.
And that as a result of that, you were able to buy us some goodwill out of all of this and did something that works to our advantage. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you describe what that is?
I'm gonna explain in a few minutes.
Oh, okay. I thought that this is not
But this
part
is,
of it.
but this
I'm
is,
just checking. Sure. I just want to make sure we don't miss that.
yeah, but
Appreciate it. Okay, I'm a little ahead of the curve then.
yeah.
Thank you.
So this is actually, this piece is part of the, part of
Thank you.
our tier two discussions. And I do think this family plan could help us. Because if we're going to be really tight in tier two, in our allocations. So if everyone else is being a good citizen as well, we could, that would help us not to incur excess use charges. So basically what this resolution 2025-03 covers is the minimum, purchase requirements modification, the tier one family plan amendment, and then there's some general housekeeping items. So I'm going to go on to talk about tier two, but if you have any questions on that one.
Yeah, quick question. On the item number 2 here, the excess use charges are only applied to San Francisco in the collective. So let's say the collective group is over the allocation. Do just the agencies that are excessively using it get charged?
Correct.
Not everybody.
Right.
Okay,
It's not group punishment.
got that. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, you knew where I was going
Yeah.
there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we're on to the next resolution to adopt a new tier two plan. So just to give some history, the current tier two plan was adopted in 2011. It actually expired in 2018. That's not on this chart. And since 2018, the Bosca board has been just.
Kicking the can down. Yeah, let's be, let's stay the way it is.
Yeah, every year it's been renewed. So what happened, the existing tier two plan actually was implemented for the first time with the 2021-22 drought. And so that was implemented mid 2021. And with that, it became apparent that many of the agencies were not feeling that this was a good plan, including the district. We went in a little bit of a panic mode because with the calculation, it had us having a cutback for a 15% cutback, it had us as 30 to 35% in the calculation. Bosca's decided to start the process to renegotiate the tier two in 2022. So if you can go on to the next slide. So we have been working for 2.5 years, having monthly half or full day meetings. Plus, we've had prep meetings and spending lots of time reviewing materials. And yeah, it's been very
Arduous.
arduous. And this is Kathleen, Kathleen and I doing this over. So it was a very difficult process, and trying to get 26 agencies to come up to agree was difficult because we all have different motivations and views about the plan. So if we can go on to the next one. So Oscar likes to show this, and this was what when we started off negotiating, these were the planned policy principles that we came up with. And that, as we were negotiating, we wanted to make sure we could provide sufficient water for basic health and safety. We wanted to minimize economic and other impacts, adverse impacts. We wanted something that was predictable. And we also wanted to, avoid disincentives for water use efficiency and development of alternative water supply projects. So those are the kind of the overarching rules that every meeting we were reminded of that we needed to, be thinking of as we negotiated. So the next slide. So the result is we have an agreed upon tier 2 plan. Finalizing this updated plan required concessions from all agencies. This is not a perfect plan. Not many agencies are happy about it, or they have certain views. Certainly, we have our views as well. There is give and take, and certainly, incorporating also this tier 1 plan and the minimum purchase quantities. We had a couple agencies who said they wouldn't even agree to it until we get that minimum purchase quantities situation resolved. So it was a give and take. The good news, and Kathleen and I were able to negotiate an exception for Coastside. So the plan calculation is an Excel model. It has several steps, and it starts out using like a base year production number. Actually, it started out using base year as it purchases. And what we saw is that it was really detrimental to Coastside. With having the calculation as is without giving us an exception, something that could be a 20% cutback all of a sudden turned into a 40+% cutback for Coastside. And that was because of our local surface water supplies. So, I mean, you were golden, I won't say gold, but you were in good shape if you relied 100% on SFPUC water and you had no local sources. So that was one thing on this plan. But the other point is, you look at the other agencies, and most of the other agencies do not have surface water sources. They have groundwater sources if they have alternative sources. So we were kind of being, we thought, penalized because of looking at local surface water sources that cannot be relied upon in a drought. If we have a drought in a local watershed, we're not getting any water from Denniston. So, and the other piece that we presented is that Coastside really needs to maximize use of Denniston, particularly our local surface water sources, so that we can protect water rights. So we put together a position paper and presentation to BOSCA. We actually had many meetings with some of the BOSCA agencies to tell them what we're doing and why. And so I gave a tour. We gave a tour of the so we're very proud to say that we got this exception. Again, this isn't perfect. There were other pieces of the plan that aren't necessarily working in our favor. But right now, if we did have like a 20% cutback, we would probably have to cut back 22%. Where you see other agencies, they're maybe cutting back 10 to 15%. But but it is better than what we had. So
So for Coastside, instead of looking at our solely our purchases, they will look at our total production, which includes our local.
Yeah, right.
Includes our
No,
local
that's
water.
good. I mean,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was.
that's great. I mean, yeah, what opinion is.
Yeah, well done.
And
Well,
also,
that's great. That's why I want to be sure that was put out on the table here. That's a helpful.
And we're very small compared to.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So we're like 1% of the total, so it really wasn't going to harm, we had to show that it really wasn't going to
Hey,
harm.
look, we're the guys who got credit for treating our own wood. Also, so I mean, we gotta do whatever we can do to make sure our interests are taken care of, and you guys are watching out for our best interests. I can't complain about that.
And just following Mr. Chair, Vice Chair's comments. I mean, our customers have to realize the complexity of the work you put in and the involvement. It's not like turning on a pump and turning on a valve. It's months and months of hard work by everyone to ensure that the future for Coastside County Water District will have a supply of water to provide to our customers. I think that's very important. What a very complex situation. Not just turn on the pump.
What's the probability of this being unanimously adopted?
Mr. Fingers.
Yeah.
Well, as of now, I think only one agency's, I think it's City of Millbrae's adopted it. And then over the summer, it's gonna be agendized. Some of the larger agencies, like cities like Palo Alto, where it takes a long time to get things agendized on the calendar. It might not get to it till September, but I think Bosco would like to see at least, a majority, anywhere from 50 to 75% of the agencies adopt it by August, September timeframe. And then that would make San Francisco comfortable that, with some assurance that the rest would adopt it also.
And is your feeling that the group is gonna that they'll approve it?
Yes, from a staff perspective, yes, but they have to now give their presentations to their councils like we're doing here, and a lot of them have a lot of committees they need to go through. So there's no guarantees, but at the staff level, we're pretty positive that it will.
Well, thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it. Sounds like, negotiating with 26 other agencies plus the benevolent overlord can't be easy. And so thank you for getting this as far down the road as you have.
Yeah, well, San Francisco wasn't part of this. This was strictly,
Okay.
this was strictly the wholesale
Oh,
customer.
no kidding. So
Tier two,
They didn't, okay.
No.
They stayed out of it, weren't part of it. And
Interesting. Okay.
So as the Bosco rep, I really want to thank staff. And this is why I'm so stingy with staff time, instead of telling the governor what we're doing here. Our hours are better spent, and it was alluded to here, 2.5 years of staff time. This is a legacy. This is a generational agreement. This is something we will be long gone, and this will be in force. And the original allocation was really, really large. I mean, we would have been run out of town going to our customers with 20, 30, 40, potentially 40% cut back. So this, I can't thank staff enough, Kathleen and Mary, for persevering, and we were the little squeaky wheel here. And we get lost in the noise, and there's, the bigger agencies like flexing their muscle at Bosca. But we prevailed here. We got a pretty damn good agreement. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than we started out with. And it's something I'm comfortable living with. So I really want to thank staff for the both of you for putting this together.
Well, good to hear. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
I
thank you.
appreciate everybody's work on this. Well done.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this agenda item would be a motion too, right? On that full agenda item.
We are we are to consider the resolution to approve the
I
amendment.
wish we've got the information. Thank you for all as board member just stated. Thank you all for all the work put into this because there's a number of pages there.
Do you want to make the motion, John?
I think, Chris, you worked hard on.
Oh.
That's a good point. Let's have.
Yeah, I did a little work in lobbying Nicole, and Nicole had, 1.5 feet out, out the door. But she did pull it off. I have to say, and it was hurting 26 cats. Yeah, I already flipped. it.
We've already always had a voice,
Yeah.
that been involved in a lot of this stuff for a long time, and he's probably been there doing his thing as well. I wouldn't,
Yeah, this.
I wouldn't want to not give him his due for
That's a good one.
his
Thank you.
his
All right.
below the line stuff that he does for months and months and years to keep us,
All right.
and so, he's.
Well, I'd like to recommend adoption resolution 2025-03,
Yeah.
approving an amendment to the amended and restated water supply agreement between the city and county of San Francisco and wholesale customers in Alameda County, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County, and adopt resolution 2025-04, approving tier 2 drought response implementation plan pursuant to section 3.11.c of the amended and restated water supply agreement between the city and county of San Francisco and wholesale customers in Alameda County, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County.
I'll second that.
Wow.
Okay.
Helpful, thank
Motion
you.
and a second.
I do have a comment.
Yes,
though,
please.
We have time.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the comment is, our Aqua Region 5, I believe, will be meeting in San Francisco with SFPUC in September. I don't know if you're aware of that yet, but I was notified to save the dates. I think Lisa, right? You notified us to save the date for meeting with SFPUC, so maybe I could bring them a couple of hundreds. Or some garlic.
All right, roll call,
Okay,
please.
Director Coverdale's absent, Director Michelson,
Yes.
Director Mueller,
Aye.
Vice President Philman.
Yeah.
President Reynolds.
Yes. Mary,
Yeah.
this is one of the thicker sections.
Yes.
Our binder is decades.
Yes, this is another one of our accomplishments. Yeah, I'm gonna have Darren take the lead on this section, but before I turn the floor over to him, I do want to mention that the effort to get here today has been huge by staff. I'll say primarily Kathleen, Darren, Dustin. We've also had many hours of assistance from Pat and also from President Reynolds. So it's an, a big effort for kind of a difficult topic. So with that, I will turn this over to Darren.
Okay, I'll try to keep this, I've got a lot here, but I've got a lot scribbled out all of a sudden. The idea of cross connection control, it's not new to the district. We've had a cross connection control program since 2004. It was amended in 2013. Before 2004, the cross connection control program was administered by the county of San Mateo. Title 17 of the California Code of Regulations was originally implemented for this in 1978. It established the initial framework for the cross connection control in California. It required public water systems to implement cross connection control programs and conduct backflow prevention assembly testing. There are new cross connection control regulations adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board called the Cross Connection Control Policy Handbook, or I'm going to try to refer to it as the handbook. There's a lot of these in here. The handbook builds upon Title 17 providing guided detail providing detailed guidance on expanding the requirements for the hazard assessments, the cross-connection control plans, the backflow prevention assembly testing and installation. It also introduces new certification standards for backflow assembly testers and specialists. The handbook prescribes in detail all the elements that are required for the district's plan and mandates that these policies and procedures be included in a written plan and submitted to the State Water Resources Control Board by July 1, 2025. The district's draft plan is provided as an attachment for your reference in here. So the district's current cross-connection control ordinance, which is 2013-01, does not cover all the requirements of the state's cross-connection control policy handbook. Staff is asking the board to consider approving ordinance 2025-01 so that it can be included in the district's plan as required by the state's handbook. Ordinance 2025-01 was written to meet the implementation, was written to meet the implementation, the enforcement policies and procedures of the handbook. The ordinance will also give the district the ability to implement and enforce our plan and comply with the state's handbook, including implementing corrective actions against the water users who fail to comply in a timely manner with provisions regarding the installation, inspection, field testing, or maintenance of backflow assemblies. The enforcement includes being able to deny or discontinue water service to a user, install, inspect, field test, or maintain a backflow prevention assembly at a water user's premises. The ordinance also includes the description of ownership, the right for the district to enter property, the appeals process, cost, recovery, limitations of liability. Ordinance 2025-01 will give the district the ability to implement and enforce the cross-connection control program and plan and comply with the requirements of the state's cross-connection control policy handbook. Sorry, there is a lot of cross connections in there. So.
We did receive our notification by June 30th. It had to be reported back to the district. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Darren. I have a comment to the team. You guys know I've been a backflow tester and a cross-connection control specialist for 15 years. I think the new rules are miserable. I think the staff has done a really amazing job of crafting a way for us to comply with it. It didn't just make me absolutely livid. And so I think we've come up with a compromise that I can live with. But I want to be really clear. The rules that have been given to us by the state are burdensome to the extreme. I think there's some huge issues in them. And I've spent time with the staff and I'm really impressed how hard they're working to work within the legal framework that we've been handed to come up with a policy that is the most fair to our customers and the most reasonable to our customers. And I'll give you an example. You know, this is 138 pages. And the staff has tried to reorganize that so we keep the intent of the law, we keep what's required, but we organize it in a way that when a customer comes in and needs to comply, the first half of the handout is readable, and a lot of the lot for legalese is moved further back. I gotta say that sums it up.
Things like
I'd like to add to the burdensome part. Not only is it gonna be burdensome, it's gonna be very, very expensive for us. Tens of thousands, commercial side, thousands on the residential side. This is gonna be very, very expensive to implement.
So the ordinance is here. If we approve this, tonight is to
Yeah.
approve this 130 page.
No, no, it's to approve the ordinance.
The
And-
ordinance.
Yes, and the ordinance refers to the.
Oh, the ordinance has references to the,
Yeah.
to the stuff, okay. So it's all Greek to me, but not for you guys, and my questions are, basically. Trying to get through all of this stuff. It's something we gotta do.
Yeah.
We have to revise our ordinance and amend it.
Yeah.
What we're doing is taking some stuff that isn't really nice and not really something that we feel
Yeah, good about.
good about and making it the law.
Yeah.
For us and our customers. What is going? And the comment came up from one of the regulars that Chris, that this would be very invasive and costly for many of our customers potentially. So what is the impact? I can't get that out of this. What does it mean to the 7,000 or so connections we have in the community? And how do we present this in a way to the public that they understand that, one, we have no choice, two, we've made the best of a bad deal, and three, this may be painful. So how do we plan to sell this going forward, and how bad is it going to be for some people?
I think the shortest answer that I could come
Sure.
up with, and Mary and Darren seemed pretty okay with, was we changed a lot of the language to say that what we're doing is in compliance with state law.
Perfect. Right.
So instead of saying Coastside County is
No,
telling you
actually-
you have to do this, we're saying in accordance with state law.
Right.
We are required to do this.
Well, you made the best you can out of it.
Yeah, I think
I got that.
it was really important to not, I didn't want people to think that we come up.
No, I appreciate you did everything you could to make this
Because it, yeah.
practical, but what is it really going
What
to
it's gonna
be for the people that are going to be affected? How much pain is it going to cause, and to how many people? Do we have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just.
we're asking, we're having to go through and increase our backflow prevention
Right.
across the district.
Right,
And at the most burdensome level, it means people installing different devices which have a cost
Right.
at their meter connection.
Right.
And so what we've tried to do is, within the very restrictive laws, try and give us as much flexibility as we can to reduce that cost.
is it for new builds or is it for retroactive?
It's for everybody.
Okay, so
There is,
people,
there's
no one is free from this requirement. So you may have in an existing home to deal with it too, is what I think you're saying.
Yep, and so,
How does one ascertain that? How does one know?
so that's there's two burdens to this. There's a
Right.
burden to the district, the water district, because our feet are being held to the fire. That
Right.
we have to assess and present to the state that we know everybody's connection and every water type use. And then the users who fall into a category where they would need a backflow.
Sure,
Now, the good news here is many of our commercial buildings have already been told that they need
okay.
backflow.
Mhm.
So that's okay. The part that I'm really concerned about is that they've changed the policy or the rules for fire services.
Mhm.
And the problem there that really hurts, and nobody wants anybody to burn in the fire. Nobody wants a backflow contamination. We all agree on that.
Right,
But when you start messing with fire connections, the size of the appurtenance, the size of the
Yeah.
connection is big. We've all driven up and down the street and seen those big connections. And the minute you start saying, hey, you gotta change that, there's real money involved.
Right.
And so I think that there's some real concerns about that cost. But I'll be super clear, from everything that I've seen and has been presented to me, our hands are, this isn't an option. This isn't something we can say, hey, we don't want to do this. We would then be in violation
No,
of state law. And none of us want to be in violation.
Over
So-
what period of time
We
does
do
it have to
little-
be implemented?
The fire service connections is the only, correct me if I'm wrong, is the only hard time for, period, and that's a 10-year time period.
10 years.
Yes,
And I'm just, again, I'm.
and we have a systematic approach spelled out in the
A
plan.
10-year window for making these adjustments
Correct.
for the fire stuff. What about the other stuff?
Uh,
Commercial.
we, in our plan is a proposed schedule of how we propose to,
So you have to put a plan
Systematically.
together to say how you're going to go out and inventory and look at all of these things and find out what needs to be done and
Yes.
then schedule doing it. And you have a period over which you can do this and time for which we can tell the people it's going to have to be done and to get them to understand what's coming. I'm not
Yeah,
getting
correct. Obviously,
There's
the regulator has to be okay with our timeline.
Okay,
yes, but we do have to start, as of July 1st. The regulator still has to approve it, but we do have to start.
and you have to have the thing to the regulator by July 1st.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the state of California.
No, no, I-
Everyone's not really paying attention.
No, I guess, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
It's all in here, I know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there was a lot of stuff in here,
It's a lot. It's a lot.
and you guys have studied it and understand.
Unfortunately.
Okay, I guess, so my concern is if we agree, do the ordinance, and there's not much we can do not to do it. How do we
Go ahead.
get the word out? That's the next question.
Well, I think Darren's come up with a really good plan to roll it out, and there's two parts. There's a
Okay.
lot required, but also there's only so much we can take on. So
Right.
we're not, we've staged the input rollout. And we can start by sending out letters saying, hey, this is what's required.
I'm just
But then the critical ones have to start rolling.
Part of the requirement of the plan is public outreach. Part of the requirement of the plan that we've produced is public outreach.
Okay, no, that's fine.
And
That's fine.
so you'll find in the plan, there's a lot of reference to how the public outreach will also happen.
Okay. No, it's a lot of work.
Go ahead.
And part of this process for the individuals that have private, I'm not sorry, but commercial, temporary meters for their construction work and stuff, are they gonna be required to have one on the fire hydrant too?
Yeah, they already do.
Yes,
They do, huh?
That's the easy one, yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's an easy one. We consider that an air gap where we do double checks.
So I didn't realize that.
Excuse me, reduce. That's all.
But if you have a fire hydrant on your property, are you still gonna be required to have a backflow check on that? Or no?
Well, no,
If you're using a fire hydrant for construction use, yes.
Okay.
That would be the only appropriate time that you could use a fire hydrant.
I see, okay,
well, unless it's a fire.
Correct.
You're allowed to use it during a fire.
okay.
Oh, no, the Coastside Fire Protection District's allowed to use.
Yeah. But as
But
as an individual, the only time you'd be able to use a hydrant is with
Sure.
Sure, you
We
mentioned,
don't need to use them.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm sure you mentioned it. But once again, what was the driver for the state to create this miasma?
So they have,
What was the driver? What?
Nanny state, I think is a term that we use in the state of
So I-
California.
Well, I mean, if I may,
I'm sorry, I'm asking.
they, obviously, the Division of Drinking Water, State Water Resources Control Board, the intent is to protect public health
No, okay.
and to protect public water systems.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to try to prevent, and so, I mean, if you look through background, they give you instances of events that have caused harm, death and illness to people from backflow events throughout the country. So I mean, that's what they, what
That's
the
the
state
rationale. I'm just trying to
thinks
understand
the rationale, yeah.
from that view, it's.
So Bob, to answer, to add to what Kathleen's saying,
It's fine.
the rules were split in several sections, which was really confusing. And the other problem was that it was being implemented in California by different agencies
Right.
in wildly divergent manners. And that was actually really challenging. So a person who was testing a backflow in one region would be told they couldn't in
Right.
another. The rules would be wildly different in one district.
This has been.
There was,
consistency there.
yeah, and so that they said, look, this is not the Wild West. We need to clean this up. And so they put a committee together of about 40 people and they hashed it over for about 2 years. And it's, I'll shut up.
One of the other, if I may, one of the other big drivers behind this that I see personally, this is just my opinion, is the use of the larger use of recycled water. Where you have dual plumbed buildings.
Okay,
And that's becoming more and more popular every day. And I believe that is also one of the large reasons behind this from what I've heard.
Yeah, good.
Which is, like I said, we don't have them here, but even in the city, Stephenville.
River City,
yeah.
Santa Clara.
so there is a rationale
Yes, sir.
that's underpinning all of this, and I'm not saying there isn't rationale behind it. Just the way it was organized made it tough, I think, for you to figure out how to put it into a reasonable manner to sell it.
I
And
can,
now to sell it will make it difficult.
I can offer one more thing
Yeah,
that
yes,
I think is interesting and kind of helps
Sure.
put this in perspective. So as you guys know, the American Water Works Association, our local chapter is California, Nevada.
Right.
And so when you certify as a cross connection and backflow person, you're certified in both Nevada,
Right.
California and Nevada. Nevada runs a different program than California does. And Nevada's is what's called the point of use backflow protection, which means a cross connection specialist has to go through every single building, commercial building,
Mhm.
and inspect every single ice maker, coffee maker, soda fountain, boiler in the building, and it has to be done annually.
Will there be annual certification for these?
Oh,
For
absolutely.
the residentials also?
Every backflow will be annual tested.
So my house, built about 20 years ago, so I do have a fire system. So I'm single family residential service with a fire system. I'm gonna need 2 backflows. And
Possibly.
well, what our policy is we have 2 meters. I'm guessing each meter will require a backflow.